Okay, good morning and welcome everyone. I want everyone to think about this statement for a second. Is it never too late to learn something new? Have you ever gotten to the last point where you just don't think you can do something new? I mean, think about it for a minute. Is there a possibility that you can actually reinvent yourself? Would you be actually scared to reinvent yourself? Many people will constantly state that they can, I can always learn something new, but when it really comes down to it, I think that fear would absolutely get the best of them. The starting point of all achievement is desire. This was spoken by Napoleon Hill, an author, Napoleon Hill. I hate to stop this. It's bouncing up and down. Okay, I think we're good now. Without a desire?
We'll just start from the top. Are you going to be word for word on this, or are you going to kind of be riffing a little bit too?
I could be riffing a little bit. I'm sorry.
You right off the bat.
I apologize.
I'll be listening, I guess, for some of those keywords to try to stay up with you on.
Okay.
Otherwise, I was already getting lost because of that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's just start you from the top then, so it's nice and clean.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that, folks.
That's all right.
Hey.
First time using teleprompter.
This is our first teleprompter.
Yeah.
Don't forget to back up your slides.
Thank you, sir.
That's right. Actually, you are. You're talking about something new, and you're.
Yeah, we're going to give it a shot. When you're ready.
Yeah, whenever you are.
Okay. Good morning and welcome. I want everyone to think about what this statement may mean to you. Is it I'm just going to keep moving. Do you agree or disagree? I mean, truly believe or not believe? Sure, most would say yes, but I wonder if everyone actually believes it. Author Napoleon Hill stated, "The starting point of all achievement is desire." Without a desire to learn and someone willing to share their experiences, true learning would be absolutely impossible. We're all smart in our own ways and all capable of accomplishing just about anything, even when we are being our own worst enemy. I'm of the opinion that mostly about desire. I loathe the times when people tell me that they do not believe they're smart enough. Or worse yet, wow, you're so smart to someone, in turn downplaying their own abilities. Let me take a moment to say this. I'm very guilty of the latter. I've struggled with terrible self-confidence issues throughout my life. Every day was and still can be a struggle. But trust me, it's a struggle worth fighting. One of the best confidence boosters that I have ever found was educating. And for those unaware, I currently work for an organization writing educational curriculum for electricians throughout the United States and Canada. It is an honor to travel those countries to reach out and better our industry. Prior to this second career, I spent 21 years as an electrician, 16 of them as an outside general foreman over a variety of types of projects, mostly automation and high voltage. From the earliest times of my life, my parents spent vast hours teaching my brother and I the finer points of life. I would gather not unlike many of you. My mom worked evenings for Trans World Airlines and my father was a self-taught engineer. My mother's lessons were be kind to everyone, don't fail, work hard, be creative, support your arguments, but stay in the lines. And oh, you have to appreciate sarcasm if you know anything about my family. My father's lessons were more practical in nature. They involved tools, welding, how to use intricate math, understand science, and step out of bounds. And don't be afraid to ever be different or to fail. Notice I said intricate math. The simple math that involved how much money was in the checking account or how many miles there was to go on a full tank of gas were not at all part of the equation. Hence my parents divorced when they were 16. But my mom, aka Mama Lunar, and my father, aka Pops, did agree on quite a few things. Be honest, treat others how you would like to be treated, lend a helping hand when needed, ask questions when you need answers, and give honest answers when asked questions. Trust me, I see the results of my parents and myself on nearly a daily basis. I feel we're all very smart in our own ways, mostly due to our innate interests as an instructor. I feel as soon as I can appeal to someone's interest, I can pique their desire to succeed. Oftentimes, I believe these natural interests serve as a comfort zone, which allow us, as we are very emotional creatures, to find inner comfort and peace. I've always spent a lot of time tinkering. I know it was that led me to engineering and ultimately into the business of electricity. My latest creation from some random things run around my shop was the Motorized Lazy Susan coffee table for the Steeler game host that has everything. When you have 20 people sitting around trying to reach over a coffee table, it's just better to make it spin and bring it to you. A friend of mine at a local restaurant is a banquet chef. He's an award-winning banquet chef, saw this, and he said, I really wish I could make that. I wish I could do something like that, but I'm just not smart enough. I said, you can do anything you want to do. You cook fabulous food and feed hundreds of people just like their mom made it. He said, anyone can cook. And I said, you haven't seen anything that I've ever made. Remember, it's all about desire, and it's never too late to learn. I would gladly help him learn how to fix his stove or refrigerator just as much as with his guidance he could show me how to make that fabulous lasagna or his carrot cake that we love so much. I do have to say this, his desire to make is probably much stronger than my desire to cook, so he's winning out in the long run on this. My desire to help others has been around for about 42 years and 6 months as of today. I was the kid that was constantly asking questions. I was the kid that you as a parent probably hated because I was always talking to strangers. It didn't bother me who they were, or I didn't care whether or not they wanted to speak to me. I was going to ask them, I was going to speak to them, I was going to run off, and nobody would ever find me. That natural curiosity has led me along the path of engineering and into the electrical education apprenticeship. I think I learned more about life being an apprentice. Oftentimes in my post-apprenticeship career, I've been referred to as the phone-a-friend, whereas my peers, especially one in particular, my friend Rachel, would ask highly technical questions that they weren't sure of. They claimed that the answers just rolled off of my tongue. Unfortunately, I did not necessarily feel the same level of self-confidence, but I knew it was an honest answer based on my experience in the question I was asked. They also said I had no problem telling them I do not know, but I would have explanations on where to go next. What they didn't know is how much their question would eat at me. I would obsess over these questions on a regular basis. There was this fear to not let them down, but maybe it was my inner burning desire to learn more and to succeed. I just didn't realize it at the time because the fear was so prevalent. You see, I would reteach myself concepts and scenarios just to be sure I could feel a level of comfort, that I didn't steer them wrong. Remember, the first part of my career was PG. That's pre-Google. So I was constantly going back to the textbooks, whether they were from engineering classes at the University of Pittsburgh or the apprenticeship, anything I could find, including my own phone of friends. Many follow-up calls always ensued where I would second-guess the answers I gave them, but they would reassure me that everything was just fine. Sometimes. Then they just yell and scream and get mad. Please don't get me wrong, there's a few doozy screw-ups over the years, but they were always learning experiences. No matter how much somebody said they were learning experiences, you might not have believed at that point in time, they were absolutely learning experiences. As I've always told people who've worked for me or have sat through any of my classes, you absolutely want to constantly make your best decision that you can. Regardless of whether it's right or wrong, you have to make the best decision you can. And it's my opinion that if you've demonstrated that you've gone through and in that decision that you've thought about it, even if it was blatantly wrong for the time, but you've thought about it and you showed a level of caring, we can always work with those answers. Because at least there's somewhere something that we have to work with. You showed that you demonstrated you cared enough. I think those occurrences were what prepared me for me to become an instructor. You see, they found me. I didn't find them. Sure, people had constantly asked me, maybe you'd be interested in teaching. I just scoffed it off. No, it wouldn't be for me and it wouldn't be the item that I wanted to. But something was different that one particular day in October in 2006, many years ago, that made me say, I'll give it a try. And heck, if it didn't work out, so be it. I'm still an electrician. I can still go to work and there won't be anything to be worried about. I think we can all think of our example of our earliest teachers were. Maybe it was a parent, a family member, a coach, someone along those lines. For me, it did happen to be my parents. Though we came from a broken home and things changed, it was my parents. Picture this. Two people met in 1947, grew up 3 streets away from each other, attended the same schools and teachers, didn't date each other ever, In fact, barely even knew each other until one day they actually met. Let me reintroduce you to my parents. Now I'm getting too far back. Let's back up here a second. Mama Lunar and Pops. My point to this is they grew up in basically the exact same area, but had vastly different interests and vastly different ideas about life. See, my mom was always one that's electronic items, anything technical, it's too complex. She can't have anything to do with that. She claims she hates it. She says people like her don't need them, don't want them, are too old to ever understand them, and quite frankly, she is Italian stubborn. You will not change her mind no matter what. She tells me I'm full of, we'll just keep it clean for today. But trust me, it's not even as basically the worst things you can think of. It's still way worse than that, anything that she would ever say when she's upset with me. But remember, she taught me to support my arguments. So I'll delve into a little bit of an example here. If you ask her what the sentence spoken at the 15-minute mark of any I Love Lucy, MASH, Law and Order, common television show this day, she's going to give it back to you verbatim without skipping a beat. And if you argue with her, she's going to shut you down really quick. And that game Scrabble, everybody know the game Scrabble? The triple letter score? She will figure out any two-letter combination that will beat your supercalifragilisticexpialidocious word at any point in time. Still not convinced? Well, let me tell you this. She's worked for the airlines for 50 years. She started off with Trans World. She's worked for American now, and she worked for US Air. As I like to say, she's put a lot of airlines out of business. But she knows every three-letter code. Sure, it's because she had to, but she knows them from Wichita to Bangalore and all those three-letter codes. But what she can also tell you is, why is Wichita only ICT? Well, it's because the FCC didn't let you use the letter W when they first came up with it. Or why is MSY New Orleans? Well, that's about this fellow named John Moisant. He happened to crash a plane into an area that later became the Louis Armstrong Airport. YYZ for Toronto, not only is it a song inside Rush's album, because that's where they're from, but we'll get into that later on. That's a little bit too long of a story for this time. You see, she's been to all 50 states and 6 continents, and I think it was that sightseeing that led her to become a little bit boring. Electronic-related stuff never, ever scared my dad away. He was one of those types of people that, whether it was science, photography, car racing, business, cooking, singing, to name just anything, he was absolutely interested in it, and he wanted to give it a shot. You name it, he probably knew something about it, and he probably tried it, and he wasn't afraid to share any of his experiences about it. Especially when he failed. Something my mom wasn't necessarily always willing to admit. Notice back at the beginning I said, don't fail. Each living room. But the part that always stuck with me is he never refused to answer anything. He poured his heart and soul and money into anything that he absolutely ever wanted to do. Now, he'd be honest about his forthright and his expertise, and to this day is always teaching because he loves to share his experiences. As a matter of fact, his company brochure was constantly entitled this: Older Traditions Mixed with Younger Ideas to Offer Better Solutions. It was a picture of my grandfather and myself. This statement is a statement I've always tried to pay attention to. I very much believe in the fact that we have to continue to advance everything we do, and we can't stay in the past. We can't continue to do stuff because we've always done it that way. But trust me, those ideas that are coming from the people that want to stay back here still offer very relevant information for us to move forward. For Mama Lunar, it was a game of friends, words with friends. You see, that just jettisoned her into the social media age. She always was exhausted, all of her opponents locally, playing that Scrabble game, so she moved on to this Words of Friends thing. And once we got to that point, we were able to get her into the electronic age, and it's taken a minute. But when you least expect it, well, there she is playing her Words of Friends, but when you least expect it, she's going to bring up a picture of you and post it on Facebook for the entire world to see. I know you become the subject of her Facebook posts and compromising positions. Because once she broke the ice with that game, she has become the master of the iPad, and in turn, she now has more apps on her phone than my brother and I combined. Next step is electricity, and trust me, she'll have me and all of us questioning if we actually know anything about the word. So she'll give us a schooling. There's no greater feeling, as an instructor, there is no greater feeling than when a student sinks into a student that their aha moment has come about. Sometimes it can be instantaneous, other times it can take a bit, like say decades. To some it may seem like something really small, but I've learned the most about the proper care and use of tools whenever I bought my first house and my father came to help me. He left a note on the refrigerator. It says, "Congratulations on the house. I learned a couple tricks of the trade today with electricity and some woodworking things." And he said, "But you're never too old to learn." I'm like, well, okay, that's fine, whatever, that's cool. I didn't really think much of it until the two most rainiest days of the world have ever gone by, and I found my brand new circular saw and drill laying in the mud in my backyard. That right there struck me all the times I left his stuff laying out there. You know, make sure you put this back, leave it, put it back, do what you need to do. And I didn't care. It wasn't mine. I didn't have to pay for it. Now, I know you guys don't know my parents, but I'm sure each of you can think of your own specific examples. And by the way, I want to bring something back up. My friend Rachel is just got promoted to a full-time instructor position in Pittsburgh after a successful stint running a pretty big service contractor in Pittsburgh. See, Rachel's on her second career. Actually, let me say that. She's on her third career as an instructor, as a full-time instructor. She went through the apprenticeship with me and spent 20 years as electrician. But prior to that, she spent 12 years as an award-winning photojournalist and writer for the local news. And the way that she got into the electrical business was that when she was covering a story one day, she found a house she was interested in buying. And from that point in time, she bought that house, wanted to learn how to take care of the electricity. And all of the things she did as she was going ahead and remodeling. And that's what brought her into the age of instructing and how she was able to create her own new world. And she's thriving. Her students, lucky to have her. You see, no matter how small, easy or hard, comfortable or uncomfortable, through desire or necessity, you're never too old to reinvent yourself. Who knows where you will go on your journey? As for myself, I'm so glad someone saw that inner desire. But more importantly, I'm proud of the fact I'm learning to see it in myself. So continue to feed your inner desires, but more importantly, offer that helping hand to someone. Thank you. Well,